Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome. How's it going?
It's going really great.
I hope you guys are doing good. Happy Cuphead release
Week?
month. It was last month.
Yeah, and to those lucky few who got an SNES Mini, consider yourselves very lucky.
Oh yeah.
Very lucky.
Yeah. So we're obviously playing Cuphead. That's gonna be the theme of this episode. But I just finished Metroid, so I just wanted to talk about that real fast.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I had finished it before.
Mm-hmm.
You were in the process of finishing it, and then right now we flipped because now I'm trying to complete it on 100%. And you did complete it on 100%.
Yeah. If you complete it on 100%, all you get is like these Chozo memories.
Chozo memories, yeah.
They're like illustrations, which are pretty cool. Except for the fact that you have to stare at them on a small ass DS screen. You know, like. If there was a way for me to, like, okay, email me those, and I could put them as my wallpaper on my computer or something cool.
That'd be kind of cool, yeah.
But it's just like, it's whatever. But yeah, so I finished Metroid. I thought the ending was pretty cool.
Right?
Yeah, the last couple fights are really good. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about it other than that. I don't want to spoil who the final boss is for anybody.
Yeah, because I think you were telling me last week that when I was talking to you about the end boss, you're like, "Oh no, it's okay. Somebody spoiled it for me," and then you're like, "Oh wait, it wasn't spoiled for me."
Yeah, I thought somebody had posted like a screenshot that was the last boss, but it turns out it wasn't. So,
okay, so
I was pleasantly surprised.
Awesome, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then so you can beat it on hard mode too. You get hard mode after you unlock normal mode, which I was like, I'm not going to do that. There's not really any reason for me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
All of the end screens, though, are only time-based.
Right, so the faster you finish it, the better, I guess. Yeah. But it's like, I guess that's the callback because, like, I remember, like, I think it was it the NES one? If you beat the NES one on a certain time, you got, like, a different end screen.
Well, that's how they all are.
Really? Okay.
Except the Prime series. Because the Prime series is if you finish 100%,
gotcha.
You get a different little cutscene of her getting into her ship.
Okay.
Which is why I thought, like, oh, if I beat it 100%, maybe I'll get something, you know? That was not the case, though, and I was kind of like, whatever. I mean, what are you going to do? It was a pretty good game.
Yeah, it was a great game. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. And again, I thought the final boss was probably like the frosting on the cake because I thought I was actually done, and I didn't think there was going to be a last boss. I thought what I had done was like, oh, okay, and now I'll head back to
I think what my final thought on the game in general is if you like video games, you'll like this game.
Right.
But if you love Metroid games, you'll love this game because it's kind of like I would say it's kind of more of the same. Mm-hmm. You know, it doesn't do anything too outside of its comfort zone.
Yeah. I would agree.
But if you're not into Metroid or any of that stuff, it might just play like a mediocre game. You know, if you're a fan of Samus,
I guess, but I think there's a lot in it that. Here's the thing, like, I don't remember if certain parts were ripped exclusively from the Game Boy game, and those parts, although annoying to me at some point, I thought they were just really, really intuitive and great, and they were difficult enough to keep me like, I can beat this, you know, kind of thing.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Overall, I really loved it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But I mean, then again, you like Metroid, so...
Yeah, that's true. Okay, but yeah, I do.
Yeah, you should run through Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, which is, that's what's great. Like, now I got that Super Nintendo on Friday, and, like, we busted it out on Friday. We had friends over, and we were playing it, but what I realized is, like, dude, this is kind of like the NES, where it's like most of the games I want to play on here are just one player.
Yeah.
Because they got... Super Mario RPG was like, I can't wait to start that. I started Super Metroid, and I was like, that's one player. They got Secret of Mana, which I never played. Final Fantasy. I'm like, there's so many one-player games I want to play.
That's what we were talking about last week too. Is that, like, these big titles, these ones that you remember, are all pretty much one-player games. It's like if they're not super long RPGs, you know, it's gonna be like
2 racing games.
You know, yeah, it does have like. I mean, you guys could have played Super Mario World, F-Zero, Mario Kart.
F-Zero's only one player.
F-Zero's only one player?
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. I found that out when I booted it up.
Yeah, I mean, they got Contra. You play Contra.
Yeah, I think F-Zero's one player because it's what is it? It's that weird FX8 chip or whatever that's doing the floor.
Mode 7.
That mode 7 thing, so
Yeah.
it's like it can barely handle it, you know?
I could have sworn it was 2 players, though. Whatever. Anyway. But yeah, you can play Contra.
You can play Contra, and
Contra
then the
3.
other one that you can play is Donkey Kong Country.
There you go.
But that one gets very difficult very fast. So not a lot of people like to play that one. For
Donkey
some
Kong
reason.
1, right?
Yeah. Some of the, like, especially, like, if you don't cheat and use the minecart warp,
Yeah.
that one can get pretty time-consuming.
And we played Street Fighter for a bit, too.
Found out that Bison's super hack.
You know, that version of Street Fighter that we got on that NES Classic, or the Super Nintendo Classic, I don't know if that one, like, sold better in America or something, but that's not, like, the best version on Super. I don't know why they did that, because...
Well, I mean, I told this to you while we were playing. I was like, you know, we just got the HD version of the game on Switch.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it was just like, okay, they already got that one, so let's give them something they don't have, like, readily available.
Like a shittier version.
Why do you think it's shittier? I don't get it. Like it
doesn't have 4 characters. DJ,
okay, yeah,
DJ,
but
Cammy, T-Hawk, and
but like the character modes that we have on there are more improved. Like for example, Chun-Li has her fireball. E Honda can move while he does his 100-hand.
It's fucking broken, is what I'm saying. Like, I mean, sure, if that's funner, I mean, whatever. But my whole point was that like the new Challengers has like more moves, and it's the quintessential version you played on Super Nintendo. You know?
Yeah, I guess that's true, because then you also have the super moves in the HD one, which we don't have here. But I mean, I was having fun. It was pretty broken, but if everybody's broken, isn't it kind of okay?
Not everyone's broken though. Some characters just fucking whatever. We got a Street Fighter on Super Nintendo. We were playing it. That was the gist
That's
of
the
that.
point of my my little speech there. But no, yeah, that thing was great.
Yeah.
So freaking awesome. And like, what was great is when I posted my picture on Twitter and was like, "Oh, hello there," blah blah blah. I saw a lot of people also perk up and say that also there are Amazon treasure trucks that are around in LA and that were selling the Super Nintendo.
What is a treasure truck?
I have no idea, but they were like, "Oh, they're around somewhere. Check your Twitter feeds and see if they're there, and then they'll sell you one." Which I was like, "Oh, that's kind of neat of Amazon to do," because it was going to be kind of a crazy day for the Super Nintendo. Like I drove past the Best Buy I was picking it up on, and like there was a line out the door.
All I know is like everyone who fucking bought it didn't even want it, or like
oh man, that makes me so sad because I was so.
I already saw like 7 of them on like OfferUp or like 5.
Are you serious?
Yeah, people were just they bought them and they just sold them. So
that's so messed up, man. Like,
yeah, whatever. I mean,
I know that makes me sad, and we've already talked about it on here, but that's just like if you don't. Like, I guess I don't need these because all of these games we have on an actual Super Nintendo that works, but it's nice to have it HD, small, and just be able to pop that in.
I mean, if you're a fan of Nintendo, you want this.
Yeah,
exactly. You know, it's just one of those collectible items. They're not going to make it forever, so.
Yeah. But all in all, great. I can't wait to play through all that stuff again.
But yeah, so let's stray away from that horrible Nintendo SNES Classic eBay vibe. And move over to positive vibes. Cuphead. Cuphead has arrived, and I'm very happy to finally play this game.
Oh my gosh. I've been having so much fun with that game.
You know, right off the bat, it feels crazy because I feel like I've seen so many trailers for this game. I've seen so many people play it.
Mm-hmm. I was watching a Let's Play last week, yeah, and I got hyped up.
Yeah, but I hop into the game, and I'm still seeing stuff I've never seen before. You know?
That's true.
Like, I see these boss battles, and I'm like, wow, I'm not even there yet. And I'm on World 3 already. Mm-hmm. Like there's still new things in this game. I'm like, fuck, it's crazy that it's only $20 too. Like I gotta say, it feels like a pretty full game for $20. Like I was done with Sonic Mania by like the second day, and like it's been what, like 3 days now, and
and you know what? That's a good point. You brought up that you played Sonic Mania, was $20.
Yeah.
$20. This feels like a fuller game.
Yeah, I don't know why, but
is it just the fact that it has like a little overworld? I don't know. It feels like there's more here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because maybe the game is just so difficult and it's taken us longer to beat it, but
maybe. But I gotta say, like, there's something to be said about a game where when you die, you just don't feel like starting over. Like, I had this problem with Resident Evil where I didn't want to go anywhere or do some stuff sometimes just because I'd move around in Resident Evil and I'd die.
Uh-huh.
and then I just have to go back to the save point, no problem, right?
Right.
Something about dying there made me not want to play the game anymore. But dying here, I don't care. Just start it right up.
Yeah,
let's go again.
That's what they were saying, was that was like a modern touch that they actually liked, was that. Well, let me just go into the backstory of this game and everything. So this game was made by Studio MDHR, which is I believe it's just Moldenhauer. That's their last name, so I'm just gonna call it Studio Moldenhauer.
Okay.
Chad and Jared Moldenhauer, these two brothers that grew up playing Contra and Gunstar Heroes, they said were like their main inspirations, and they used to love like 1930s, like what are those called, like the musical cartoons and like Mickey Mouse cartoons, all that kind of stuff. And they thought like, wow, well, video games and that style seem to mesh so easily. There's things in cartoons that work in video games, like cartoons die all the time and somehow they come back to life, or like they can stretch their bodies and whatever, and it just works and stuff. So that's where they came about the idea for this. And at first, they had just started as like a passion project because it was only 3 of them. It was 2 brothers and somebody else who was helping out, and they would just work on weekends. And they were just basically building up something that they could make as like a prototype, and actually get people to see it, basically.
Right.
And so I think it was 2014 or 2015. They actually had like a playable demo and everything, and that's when they realized like people want this. Like we've made something that people actually want. Mm-hmm. So like we're gonna have to double down on this and just take this as far as it can go, basically.
Right.
So they quit their jobs and they remortgaged their houses.
Dang.
And they put everything into just hiring more people. So I think right now they have 20 people on their team, which is still not a crazy amount if you think about it.
No, it's not.
I think they only have 4 animators. The rest are just like other stuff that goes in, like a concept artist, all the kind of stuff that goes into the game. But so yeah, they obviously they're getting funded by Microsoft, which is great because everything about this game is like they really nail the 1930s aesthetic. Mm-hmm. Not just because they're using like traditional paper animation, but they're also doing live bands to do the music. The music is recorded live with like a brass jazz big band. The backgrounds and stuff are real watercolor paintings and everything how they did it back then. That's how this game was made, basically. I think they said the only thing that they used was like Photoshop was colored the cells.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But yeah, like I just can't get over how much care and how much passion was poured into this game, because you can really feel it as soon as you play it. One of the main things obviously is the bosses. Mm-hmm. The bosses themselves are just so alive and like full of character. Like just every phase of the boss battle is just something that surprises me. They just transform or they turn into something wacky, and it's I don't know. I mean, you've been playing it too. Like, how do you can say that the bosses are pretty they're pretty ridiculous, right?
It's not even that the bosses are so ridiculous; it's that they feel so like they barely say anything in the matches that you have with them. And to touch upon a little history, that was the original concept, was just a boss run through, right? Yeah. So obviously the boss characters are where it's at. So that's why I noticed that there's so much character in these boss battles,
right,
that you almost want to have like another game with it's just them, right? Because the characters move and have expressions that are so like detailed.
They have personality and stuff.
Yeah, they feel really, really alive. To go back to that 1930s vibe that you were talking about, like there was a pretty famous animation studio that was around at that time. It was called the Fleischer Studio.
Right, that's what he said. It was cartoons like that and stuff.
Yeah, the Fleischer Studio. You can tell that they are very heavily influenced from them, because a lot like the First World, the Inkwell.
Yeah.
That was their studios, Inkwell Studios.
Okay.
So that's why there's a lot of like throwback to that era and that kind of tone, right?
Yeah. In particular, actually, the mermaid character.
Yeah.
They straight up reference Betty Boop, and you can tell.
Yeah,
like, I mean, the reference material, like sheet or whatever, had like Betty Boop on it, and they were just like, just use some of her elements. The small nose, the small lips. Mm-hmm. let's change the eyes up a bit, maybe keep the face the same, but and
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these characters feel like they're. I could probably go back to an Inkwell studio. Like they had this series called Stories from the Inkwell.
Right.
And you could I could almost point to one and say that's where that one's
yeah,
from.
that's their derivative of other things.
And what's great about like the Fleischer studio and the way they used to do their cartoons is they used a lot of music to push the animation.
Right.
So, for example, one that really comes to mind was called, it was a Betty Boop and Bosco cartoon called Minnie the Moocher. And it's where they both run away, and then either they have some sort of psychedelic trip or they enter a cave and there's just demons and ghosts and skeletons in there. But the whole thing is pushed because the song came from a famous singer at the time called, or not famous, I guess, but he was an up-and-comer, something called Cab Calloway.
Okay.
And it was jazz. But like the whole like the story doesn't even matter because the whole thing is just his. It's almost like a music video for his thing. You know what I'm saying? And even like there's a ghost in particular that dances like him in the middle of it. All those characters that come out, they feel like so psychedelic and evil and like, but still charming and cartoony. And that's what this whole game feels like. Every boss. Like especially this one that I was playing, one of the first airplane matches that you fight.
Okay.
Where the girl's like, where she turns into a moon at the end and stuff. Like that thing looked terrorizing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But still, like it seemed like I don't know, like still friendly, still very lighthearted. You know what I mean? Like that's how you can tell that they really studied these old cartoons.
Yeah, it's cool too because I watched the Game Developers Conference has like a video where one of the animators, Jake Clark. He goes over the process basically of how they create a character and animate it and stuff. And it's cool because they said that they don't even have model sheets. What they do or what they did back then basically was they drew like them in like an idle pose basically and just went off of that because they wanted it to feel like this is what the character looks like, but it's malleable in any way, So It's like if you want the character to scream, we don't want you to have a character sheet for that. We want you to create just for the mermaid, it was like her mouth turns into like a tuba or something and she screams out like these fish and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's just like the essence of this game is just like.
I mean that's really cool because remember while we were playing the 2-player mode.
Right.
And and there's different. I guess you could say there's different versions of Cuphead depending on how close or far away he is from the camera.
Right.
Because when he's in the world view, he has tiny little eyes.
Yeah, he has little dot eyes.
When he's on screen, he's like his regular, like what you would consider the regular Cuphead version. And then when you go to the results, the results screen, he has the yellow hands.
Yeah, he has yellow gloves and stuff.
Which is, I think, a throwback to a whole like Mickey Mouse era thing because sometimes Mickey Mouse had like yellow gloves when he had more detailed shots, and it's that kind of thing where it's like what feels appropriate for this shot,
right?
And they're just like, okay, well, his yellow gloves would stand out really well here because there's this big
white,
blue, and white background. So let's give him a little color. I think that not having a model sheet, that's one of the benefits of having it, especially when you have I guess it depends on who you hire to do this.
Yeah.
Because if they have a set of character artists and animators that are like just love that freedom and aren't just there to crank something out.
He said, well, that's what he said too, is that there was a lot of characters where he was like, they just gave me full creative freedom. And I love that because it's like, I was able to just create whatever I wanted basically, even as far as like death animations. There's a cigar enemy in the game, which I haven't even got to yet. So I was like, that's crazy. He was like, I came up with like 7 different ways for him to die, basically. And I was like, that's so cool that they were able to just go through all these things, like, albeit like painstaking to like animate and all that stuff.
Sure, but that's one of the other parts of it that I really like. Like the old Fleischer cartoons were not necessarily for children. They were for everybody.
Right.
And a lot of them had more adult themes.
Sure.
Like, for example, Minnie the Moocher, they talk about how this girl was into drugs and alcohol and stuff, and it's kind of a cautionary tale, like, don't run away, Betty Boop, go home.
Right.
Kind of thing. So there's a mention of alcohol and drinking and smoking and blah, blah, blah. And then in this Cuphead game, all like these bad guys aren't just like they're not just, flowers. They're not just vegetables or whatever. They have cigar enemies. They have references to more adult themes and kind of things.
Like the plot itself is Cuphead and Mugman. They like to gamble.
Well,
they go into the wrong casino.
Yeah.
They start gambling, and this guy who turns out to be the devil says, "Hey, if you win, how about you get the whole casino?"
Right.
Is that what this is?
Yeah.
Something like that. They roll snake eyes. They lose.
Cuphead rolls snake eyes.
Yeah.
Mugman says no.
Yeah. And so the devil says, "All right, if you do my bidding, I'll let you go." Basically, so they have to go around collecting souls, killing people, and that's the plot of the game. So already.
Already it's like you have a deal
Dark.
with the devil.
Yeah.
Because you have an addiction to gambling.
Right.
So not exactly childhood themes.
Yeah. But what's cool too is like, okay, so it's two brothers that did this. When they were at I forget I think it was one of the E3s. They're like both wearing shirts with one of them has Cuphead, one of them has Mugman. They're just like
they're all in. They're all in on this.
This game is just their baby, like this is just their love child. This is everything that they've been working for. Like it's so cool to see that it's finally out and stuff. And not to mention, so I streamed it last week. Everybody was fucking streaming this game.
Mm-hmm.
Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things, the little kid from Stranger Things, he was streaming this game, and like these players that I watched that play Overwatch. Like 2 of them were streaming this game. Like everybody was in on it. It was so cool. Like I was like, man, what a great thing to see is like your game is like I think it was like number 7 on like most streamed games on Twitch that day.
It's so much fun to play. It's hard as hell.
Right.
But it's so much fun to play. Like we were sitting there. There was one bad guy in particular because me and Steven ended up doing a 2-player mode.
Right.
Which arguably is harder, easier. I don't know.
So,
I can't really tell, but...
Well, what they said is... They said this in an interview. When you play 2 players, the bosses just have double life.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I felt it was easier, but you say it's easier by yourself. Anyway, we were playing that, I think, for a good half hour on the same enemy.
Yeah.
It was the stupid dragon one, and then even though we kept dying, I was like, look how close we got. Let's keep going.
Well, that dragon one is one of my favorite designs. I love him.
Oh my gosh. And what was great is this one thing you say will lead us to another part of why we love this game so much. But right when we got to the dragon, you're like, oh, this is a Mega Man bad guy. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, he's the yellow demon, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He's like, you'll see. And then as soon as we land, like, as soon as it started up, it was like a bunch of clouds in the air, and then the dragon on one side. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. But, like, there are very subtle references to other games in this.
Well, yeah, like they said they were inspired by, like, those plain ones are straight up, like, Raiden or Thunder Force and, like...
Actually, the art type.
Yeah. And, like, those old shooters and they straight up have a weapon that's Gunstar Heroes, like...
It's called the Chaser.
Yeah,
it's the best weapon.
Yeah, jacked from Gunstar Heroes.
Not only that, but I remember, like, right when you start up the game, first of all, it has the most, like, I don't know what it's adorable. I don't know if
it's that's a very pleasant intro. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's just so nice to see an intro like that.
Fully animated
with a nice chorus, an original song.
Yeah.
And there's animation, like a looping animation at the very beginning. It's endearing. It's such an endearing opening that makes you like those characters right away. Mm-hmm. And then when you go to the next screen, it's a cup, like dug into the ground in the darkness, and right away it was like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. I don't know if that's what they were going for.
It definitely looks like it. Yeah. And I remember seeing that intro. I was like, dude, that is just straight up Final Fantasy VII. It's great. That's great. And it's such a subtle reference because if you don't see the game, you're like, okay, it's still a nice little painting,
right?
Of the cup right there, and it's like they really went all in at the cup thing.
And it's too. They said that they were fans of Street Fighter 3. I was like, oh. That's where the parry came from. That's where EX moves came from. That's where Super came from. It's like straight out of Street Fighter. I was like, that's cool.
I know you said it earlier where you're just like, the music is great, but the sound design all around is fantastic because
it really is.
When you get hit, there's a clear sound of porcelain breaking, and was like, of course that's what it is. It could have been anything. It could have been a smack. It could have been like you're like a bonk sound because that's pretty cartoony, but they went with porcelain, and I was like, Fantastic.
Because he's a cup.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You know, the controls and like all that stuff, like everything that makes this game feel satisfying, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They said they took a lot of time on that. The speed of the jump, in particular, they were like struggling with like how long it takes for you to arc on your jump and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm listening to them talk about this game, and I'm like, fuck, like it really must have taken so much work to make this, like, because it really is important. When
It
you're
really
dodging
is.
bullets, you need to know how fast your jump is, and you need to be able to float there in a while to dodge stuff, and the dash and everything about it. It's like they know how to make this game. Basically, they've played enough of these bullet hell type games, you know, like
Yeah. Some games, for example, like Castlevania, I think is the most classic example, have like a delay and stuff
Yeah.
when they kick something on as to add to the difficulty.
yeah,
This feels like no, everything is super tight. So as soon as you hit that button, like there's an instant reaction.
yeah. It's they actually said that too. It's like they wanted it to feel more like Contra or Gunstar Heroes as opposed to ones where it's like one player based. You know,
Right, and I definitely feel more Gunstar Hero than Contra. I guess just for the fact that you can switch between like run and gun, and then like planting yourself, and then aiming, being able to aim in all 8 directions.
yeah,
Because that was one part of Gunstar Heroes that I kind of hated and loved, was that depending on which character you picked, you were a running shot or fixed
yeah.
shot.
You were free shot or fixed shot.
And
Right.
this one has both, which is, I'm like, ugh, it's so good. Like the controls are so easy to learn.
Right.
But mastering them takes a lot. Like that dash, sometimes I just, if I had like a little bit more on the dash, I could have made it out. So you really have to learn exactly how far that dash goes. You know what I mean?
It's cool too because the controls are really tight. Your character moves really fluidly, and somehow the animation doesn't suffer from that. You know,
No.
like you're not interrupted by like it doesn't look janky. Basically, it's like it plays really well, and it still looks really good. It's
Right.
still like you could still believe that you're just watching a cartoon. You know, it's not like you're playing a video game.
That's
obviously.
one of the greatest parts about this, and sometimes maybe it's a little distracting, but watching the transformations, watching the different enemies go from one phase to another,
Right.
you almost get lost in how awesome the animation is. So sometimes you just lose because you're like, oh, that's a cool animation, and then you're dead.
I think as like somebody who animates.
you animate?
Yeah. Just on the side. You can appreciate this too, obviously, but like, there's times where we see smooth animation. You know, smooth animation comes. It's everywhere. You can see it. People can work on something and make it look smooth, whatever.
Right.
This game not only has smooth animation, it has like crazy designs and it has crazy expressions. It's just like, I can't believe I'm seeing both of these things, basically, you know? You ever seen like that triangle where they're like, oh, you gotta pick, you only get 2.
Right.
Like it's either made now or and it's crappy, or it takes long and it's like it's good,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever, you
it's-
know? That triangle of stupid decisions or whatever. I can't get over how this game is like, not only is it smooth animation, but like all the designs are super fucking clever, and like all the transformations are really well thought out and wacky. Like, that is why people animate. Like, if one of my favorite shows obviously is Animaniacs. That the intro to Animaniacs is one thing that's always like ingrained in my head, because there's a scene where Wacko eats a truckload of food.
Right.
That is like why people animate cartoons. That's essentially what you want out of our cartoon, is no limits, no sensical like boundaries. Basically, everything is just completely off the chart. There's a scene I love where like they're spinning their head, they're pulling their ears and they're spinning their head.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the shit I love to see, because it's like you're fully taking advantage of the cartoon element here, you know. And this game does that so fucking well. Like, everything is so surprising to me in this game.
I think it highlights it really in the animations, because like I'm gonna go back to the one that that I think we had a lot of trouble with, but it was so kind of crazy
Who?
that I just loved watching each stage. Was the candy. It was like a candy theme, and there was like a candy queen
Oh, right, yeah.
with the castle.
Yeah.
Like the castle itself had its own personality, which is why I thought, are we fighting the castle?
Yeah.
But we ended up fighting the woman in the castle.
Right.
But she would send out these random candy bad guys.
Yeah.
And each one of them was like, well, which one are we getting this time? You know?
Yeah.
And we nicknamed them because like they're so Like, just their animations, just their walking around, like, the waffle breaks into 8 pieces, 9
Right.
pieces or something.
And then it comes back together.
I'm like, that's so cool looking.
And then there's like a jawbreaker or something that
The
like
jawbreaker was like probably the least of them because he just kind of walks
flows
around.
around. Yeah.
But even so, he has a little buddy behind him and everything. It's
Yeah, and
just,
then there's like a gumball guy and his legs are moving all crazy.
oh my gosh, the Benson clone. That guy was great because he just looks so damn wacky. Yeah. I mean, I get lost in how much was put into one bad guy.
Not to mention that boss in particular. Like when we beat it, we were like, yes! Like it was so satisfying for some reason. Like so there, you just get these moments where you're like in the zone and you're dodging everything.
Dude, and I beat that guy without any hits. By the way, I very much appreciate that this game has no lives, just unlimited continues, and in each level, no matter what, you get 3 hits. That's it.
It's one of those things that they said that they wanted to modernize it like in good ways. You know, they wanted to keep that. I mean, you can make the game as hard as you want if you give them infinite lives, basically, right? So that's what they were going for. One other thing too is like, so I listen to like jazz music and stuff. Mm-hmm. I usually have it on in, like my car and stuff. And one thing I've noticed about like playing jazz music and stuff is like, people seem to zone out or something, you know? When I put on that kind of music, people are kind of like, whatever. Like, they all sound the same to me or whatever. Mm-hmm. Something about the music in this game, it's like modernized big band music somehow. Because I'm hearing people talk about the music, and they're talking about how all these tunes are so catchy and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what it is. Like, is it just because, like, you're constantly hearing them because you're retrying the bosses over and over again, or I don't know, but I'm glad to hear that, like, you know, they're appreciating this style of music, basically, you know. Maybe this is just a better way for them to digest it, I guess, you know, like.
Maybe, but I feel like the general melody of each one has its own personality and style.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to assign music to different characters because you're like, oh, this is his theme or his theme. Just kind of like how in Mega Man, they all got their really, like people who love Mega Man, mm-hmm. You play them one of the boss songs and you're like, oh yeah, that's Armor Armadillo. Yeah, I know who that is. Kind of feels like that.
Sure, and another attention to detail there. When you die on a boss or something, it plays like a messed up version of whatever song is playing. I was like, damn. So not only do they all have their own themes, they have like messed up themes or whatever. And then they have like cards.
Yeah,
that
end
come
cards.
Up. Yeah, they have like end cards that come up when you die. And it, depending on what phase you're on, it'll be a different picture
and a different slogan.
Yeah, so if you're like on the dragon, the first part is something, and then the second part of the boss is like a different end card, and the third form is like another end card, and they all say like wacky little like insults to you and stuff.
And they all rhyme.
Yeah,
they don't rhyme, but they're clever.
Yeah.
Like, the blimp lady says. He's like, I might be a blimp, but you're a real wimp.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that's just like those little touches that really like drive the point home that like I'm in a cartoon right now. Like this is
that's so good. By the way, that little chart that shows you where you are in the boss battle, so helpful. And it really was like, hey, we got halfway. Let's try it again because we got halfway. Got a little closer. It's good to be able to see the finish line.
That really is something that's like helpful, because there's definitely times where like we were at that last phase and we were halfway through the last phase and we're like, well, let's just try it again, like like we're so close, we gotta just beat this,
I mean, it's and going back to like the sound design, that very first part, you think it would get really tiresome because in the very beginning of a boss battle, Cuphead pulls his shorts up and Mugman drinks from his own straw, and then on the voiceover you hear somebody say something like, go get him, boys, or something, and it sounds very
a brawl is surely brewing.
Yeah, exactly. Go give him a big wallop or something. And that you think would get old, but it doesn't. It feels like it's just like the intro to a new cartoon.
Yeah, it's cool.
And they have that big flashing letter that says wallop 'em.
Yeah, and there's another something else to talk about that's just a little attention to detail. Not only as far as like animation, but like game design, right? So that guy, Jake Clark, he's talking about how he animated the tombstone
Oh yeah.
So,
The jelly guy.
yeah, so you fight like a little slime guy
There you
who
go.
arguably looks like the Dragon Warrior.
The Dragon
little
Quest
slime.
ones.
Yeah. At one point, he turns into a tombstone. You fight a tombstone.
Right.
He said that there's an animation where the tombstone reels back, and then it slams down. And the way he animated it was that so you could see like basically the lining of the inside of the tombstone and the bottom of it. And he said like, I wanted to animate those parts in particular so that you could see that it's gonna come back or that it's going up basically. So I was like, they thought about all this stuff during the animation too. It wasn't just like, we're gonna need a boss, animate a boss. It was like, we're gonna animate a boss, make sure it has tells, basically.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Every bad guy has those tells before something happens.
Right.
And in particular, when we were fighting the dragon bad guy,
Yeah.
I was looking for the tell because one of the phases has a dragon head turned into like a flamethrower, right?
Right.
And you had said, no, there's no tell, he just does it.
I just said it's fast. That's
okay,
all
it's
I said.
fast. But I was like, but it's got to have a tell because all of these have a tell. Like the flames before had a little before they jump, they squish down. Before he breathes fire, he like reels back and he holds his stomach up.
Yeah, they're more obvious ones.
Yeah. But this one, I like, even though it was a little buried because it's 3 dragon heads.
Yeah.
And they're all constantly moving.
It's really hard to see.
One of them reels back and opens its mouth real wide. And I was like, you can see it, but yeah, the time to react is very short.
It's really fast.
Yeah, but man, like they built that in, like tells. That's that's fair.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, is that like from the first conception, they're thinking about this stuff, which is so cool to hear about because it's. I don't know, like when a game is well thought out like this, it's nice.
It is.
I don't know how else to describe it, but like. The game, it doesn't feel like unfair in a way, because
like another game that's arguably just really good in terms of platforming is like Super Meat Boy. And if you've ever beaten that game, one of the last bad guys is like this huge meat thing.
Yeah.
Right. I have a problem with that bad guy. That is, I hope, isn't gonna be one of the bad guys here because I'm not finished with the game. I'm like,
you're saying he has no tells.
He has no tells. So the way you beat that bad guy is you just memorize the pattern.
Yeah, I remember that boss. People were talking shit about that boss too, and I was like, you just have to die.
Yeah, and that's fine. And like, it's not like I hated the game and I shut it off at that point. I was just like, okay, I just got to memorize it. So dying is built into the gameplay.
Right. I mean that's.
And that's kind of how Super Meat Boy is. Like, dying kind of is part of the game, But, I don't know, a part of me feels like that's kind of unfair.
I could see how that's a bit annoying, yeah.
It's not annoying, it's just like, I don't know, it's unfair. Like, there should be a way to be able to beat this on the first run,
Okay. I get you, yeah.
But I feel like this game is really fair in how difficult it is, but it feels really fair. Like, if you die a lot, that's your fault. You're just not good at it.
I mean, and they have like power ups and stuff to help you out. I mean, and the power ups, by the way, are pretty balanced.
Yeah.
Like, they basically don't give you something without taking something away. So like you might get an extra heart, but it's like, oh, but your attack power is decreased slightly or something, or certain things. Like I think the only thing that doesn't really have any repercussions basically is the coffee.
The coffee
great. Is just like you constantly build meter. That's what we've been using.
By the way, the coffee with a cup. Ugh.
Yeah.
Just like, I know it's something small, but that's really clever. I think that's super, because it could have been anything.
Sure.
But they're like, coffee. Get some coffee in there because he's a mug.
Yeah. And we haven't even used the other supers yet, but we gotta check those out too. Cause
you know what? That super feels so damn satisfying.
That like big blast or
big,
that big
like
beam.
Hadouken type thing that comes out of Cuphead and Mugman's top. It feels so goddamn good.
Yeah, it's pretty satisfying. I wish there was a way where like if you had full super though, if you could just use one card still, because it does get frustrating when it's like okay, I have full meter, but I just want to throw like a Hadouken. I don't want to do like the whole fucking beam thing,
Like almost if you could switch it on and off kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could just take it off, but that's kind of a little bit different. Whatever.
Yeah, plus, man, I just love that Hadouken.
I don't have a lot of gripes about this game. But
No, I do have some though.
I mean, if I were to bring up one right now, it would probably be that. And see, I don't even know if this is like a design flaw, but like, all I was gonna say is the game gets pretty hard right from the beginning. So it's kind of like I can't blame them for like fucking up pacing or anything because you choose the levels, you know.
Right.
So you can choose
Where
wherever you want to start. Basically,
and they do have like an easy mode built in.
They do. That's something else that was really cool. So right when you start a level or a boss, you choose the difficulty right at that screen.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a boss that you're having way too much trouble on, you can just pick simple and play like an easier version of them, basically. So
just so you can move on and see the rest of the game.
Right, yeah, because there's obviously a lot to see here.
And you can go back and fight them. You can go back and fight old bosses.
Right.
So you can, yeah.
And then they also have this thing called like pacifist run or something. If you get through one of those run and gun stages without hitting anything or without killing anything, you get like you get a P. You get a little flag that has a P on it.
That's kind of cool.
From what one of those NPCs told me in the game, if you beat all the run and gun stages on pacifist, you get monochrome like filters. So
that's kind of neat.
So you can play in black and white. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I hope I can actually, unlock that.
Another gripe that I have, and this is a very, very small one, is when you do your super...
You're not invincible.
You're not invincible.
You are, like, during the actual thing, but
that last frame of you doing it,
yeah.
If there is anything in your way, yeah, you're dead.
Yeah, and
I feel like there should be maybe a couple of flashes of invincibility there, only because... when you start doing it, you're not in control of, you can't move around. You're stationary.
Right.
So you either have to plan out exactly when you do it, so that something, like, for example, in the dragon one, if you don't have a cloud underneath you, right as you finish, it's not like you can jump again out of it. So you just fall straight down.
Yeah, that is kind of...
So it's not a huge... It's really not a huge gripe, but it's something that I think maybe they didn't... Maybe because not a lot of levels have that, jumping thing. Mostly the time you're on the floor. But the two things I'll say about it is, one is the invincibility. The second thing is, with the EX move, why can't I shoot it up? Like, why can't I do the Hadouken up?
The super, you mean?
The super, yeah. The super.
Because the Hadoukens, you can aim wherever you want.
Yeah, but the other one you can't.
Yeah,
it's like all horizontal.
It says it in the description, only horizontal. I don't know, maybe it's too strong.
Maybe, I guess, but like a lot of the bad guys are vertical. Like you shoot up at them.
Sure.
Like the carrot guy.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's like at that point, even if you're not gonna let me aim it,
yeah,
at least let me burn one bar to throw a regular Hadouken up there.
Right, and that's the other thing. If I have to jump and like be in a more vulnerable spot, give me like 2 flashes of invincibility so I can land and move or something.
You know what's cool though is I like how they do fall damage in this game. When you fall, you don't instantly die. You just take an HP, which is pretty
you
cool.
continuously bounce until you get back up.
Right. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I think that is a good change.
Yeah, like I said, this gripe is very small.
Right.
Because it's just one of those things that you have to overcome. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't feel super unfair. There's some bad guys that maybe... Like, another example I'll tell you is, it's not necessarily a gripe, but I was like, man, I should just be able to lay hits on this guy whenever he's on screen. But the 2 frogs that they turn into a slot machine, they don't take damage until they start cranking out things. Yeah. And I'm like, why can't I just shoot them?
Yeah, I don't know.
But I understand why they did that, because if you just dodge coins and shoot them, there's no incentive for you to push the slot machine, so it doesn't push the game forward.
That whole parry mechanic too is really interesting. I was actually watching an interview with them where they were this was basically before the whole like, oh, you can save your partner kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they were just talking about how like, oh, when we were little kids, we would always like steal lives from each other if one of us died or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they were just like, oh, so we wanted to have a mode where, like, if you're playing with your brother and your brother dies, you can go over there and save him real fast. Or if you want to be a prick, you can just let him die or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's so crazy. I guess it's just crazy to hear about these two guys growing up playing the same stuff we were playing, you know? Literally, they were playing Gunstar Heroes, that's what we were playing, you know? Like, our parents would buy us games that we could both play, you know? Like,
That was funny because that Gunstar Hero that you have right there, that's the first game I ever bought with my own money.
Oh, yeah?
Which is why that game in particular has a very sentimental place in my past. And you know, those little, like, the open world part, I will say is very limited in terms of what you can actually do.
Right.
Because you can walk around, but the same thing can be accomplished with, like, a Super Mario 3 type of map.
Uh-huh.
Something about it feels great to be able to just walk around.
So they said something about hidden bosses, so I haven't encountered any of those, but that's something else that I'm like, oh, wow, okay. There's more fucking bosses. This is crazy.
I mean, there's hidden all sorts of stuff, right? Remember, like, I ran into your room because I found the little shortcut.
Yeah, there's little shortcuts in the maps. You can get to levels earlier, basically, than intended.
Yeah, if you take these little paths. But I got an achievement just for taking a little shortcut across the river, and I was like, that's so damn adorable.
That's pretty. It's pretty. You know, but like we're talking about all these bosses and stuff, and obviously the game was bosses at one point.
Yeah,
right?
boss run. Yeah.
That was actually like, so what they said was that they had level designs in place, but because of the way that they were doing it, you know, animation was taking forever. They decided just bosses, and that would suffice. When they got backlash in 2016 or whatever about like, oh, I'm not going to buy it because it's only boss battles or whatever. Mm-hmm. They said, okay, well, we'll just put all that stuff we had back into the game, basically. So they were basically happy that they were being asked to rework it, you know? And I was like, that's something else that's just so fucking cool. Because like I said, they're playing Contra and stuff. It's like they wanted to make levels like that still, you know? But yeah, so it's another thing that's just amazing about this game is like how things levels are seamlessly stretched across like gigantic like planes, I guess, because the backgrounds don't look like they're repeated, you know, and even the ground sometimes is like, I can't even tell if that's repeated or if that's just like something that they reuse. It looks like, with the exception of like some floating platforms, you know.
Yeah.
Everything looks like it was just drawn, you know, as part of the background, and it wasn't moved around, you know.
Yeah, like one of the tricks in animation back in the day was to make a background that repeated every so often so that a character could be simulated running through an area. I mean, it doesn't feel like, it feels like one big drawing.
So I mean, those plane parts obviously have it, but we're talking about like levels where you're running across it.
Yeah.
It all looks different, and it's all like
everything's
so
amazing and good. Like that was the first level I did was a running gun, and just I had trouble with it. I died like maybe 6 or 7 times. But I was like, man, this looks great. I can't wait to finish it. And the levels are relatively short.
Sometimes, yeah.
There was I played, for example, Epic Mickey 2. And Epic Mickey 2 had these sequences where between levels, between worlds, the transition stages, you would go through this 2D black and white level. Right. And it's very reminiscent of this. Okay, where it's like it's a side scroller, there's things going on in the background, and you just have to go from point A to point B. And I was like, man, I would play this game if it was just this.
By the way,
you know,
are we at the point where we can just say like Epic Mickey is a stupid ass name? Like,
wow.
Like, do people still think that's an acceptable name? Because it just sounds so dumb to me.
Do you just hate the word epic at this point?
I just feel like it was such a bad decision for them to choose like a buzzword and just stick it in front of Mickey. You know, like, isn't that what it sounds like?
Epic Mickey.
Like, can't you just tell that was made back then or whenever that word was like big? I mean, I guess people still kind of use it nowadays, but ironically,
I still miss that game. Part 1 though, more than part 2, but that's a whole other podcast.
I'm not even talking about the game. I'm just talking about the name. Look at Mickey Mouse's Castle of Illusion. Like, that's a real name.
Yeah,
you know?
but
like, Epic Mickey is just. All right, we're going off on a tangent.
Yeah. I think I'll say this about it is like, if you saw the original concept art and where they wanted to go with it, that was a fitting name.
Okay, sure.
Because it was almost like and this is ironic to say because a game with a similar name is coming out later on this year, Mickey's Odyssey would have been another appropriate name for that.
Well, there you go. That's Nintendo.
Exactly. Mario's Odyssey is just like that. That would have been a better name.
What if they called it Epic Mario? You'd be mad. You see?
Maybe.
I can't believe that's coming out.
What about
this
Metal
month.
Gear Survivor? No, sorry.
I don't even know where that is. Yeah, is that still being made?
It's still being made.
That's
oh yeah.
insane.
Oh yeah.
You know what I was just thinking about too? This Cuphead was on Conan O'Brien. I just realized that. You know
yeah,
that,
didn't they do like a
that Clueless Gamer thing?
Clueless
he does?
Gamer thing? Yeah,
he played it on television, so that must have sparked interest in this game. Obviously.
I mean, I think a lot of people still have. I don't know if it's an interest, but definitely they have this place in their heart for old school, like Betty Boop, Bosco.
Yeah.
Old school animations, because
Right.
it represents a time in America where, some things were just fun and kooky and didn't have to be super serious or have a message or whatever. It was just, hey, look, this character goes out and he has some adventures and he goes home. It's just fun.
Yeah. One last thing I want to say about. I guess maybe it's not gonna be the last thing I say.
We say that a lot, and then it's not the last thing.
Right. Microsoft made such a good fucking decision, like, funding this game. They really needed something to stand out on their console. And I think what this game does, obviously, is, like, it really has a charming look to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, like, Xbox needed, was, like, something that, like, people see it and they're just like, I want to play that. I need to play that. Like, how do I play that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's why it was a good decision to have it on TV. I'm sure many people saw it on TV and were just like, what is this? I need to play this. Like, this looks so cool, you know? Like,
yeah.
So, yeah, like, good on Microsoft for funding an indie game that is paying off for them, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft's had a good record with indie games. I mean, remember that
Like
movie
what?
Indie Game?
Right.
That was Super Meat Boy, Fez, and what was the last one?
Braid.
I mean, those were... I mean, if you just saw their character art or whatever, it didn't look like anything special, but the fact that they were really fun to play...
Microsoft didn't do that, though. What are you talking about?
They put them on their indies, like it was their summer playlist for all these indie games, and they were like, we're going to put your games up front on the front of our
Yeah, and then when Meat Boy it wasn't on there, right?
Right, but it was just a glitch, and it was put on later that day. But it was like,
okay.
But it was like Microsoft pushing that they wanted more developers to make these small $20 games for their system.
I mean, yeah.
Like I obviously know that Microsoft big company and they want to make money and blah blah blah. I get it, but they also do these small like indie pushes, and this is one of the reasons I like to have an Xbox, is because it always seems like they have really a big slew of indie games. Like, they'll try a lot of different things.
Nintendo has a lot on Switch right now. It just sucks that they're not original.
No, because they have Cave Story. It was like Cave Story is like 5 or 6 years old. At this point.
And they expect me to pay $30 for it. I'm like,
again,
or like Binding of Isaac. I'm like, dude, this game is like $1 on Steam. I'm gonna go buy it on Steam.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna buy it on Switch. By the way, Cuphead's like color scheme works with your Switch. Like, it would have been so good to I mean, I understand they can't do it. Microsoft is. I get it.
Yeah.
But that would have been so good. It would have been so good to have on Switch, dude.
Especially being able to take that game around.
Just hand somebody a Joy-Con and they're color coordinated. Like,
yeah. That would have been. It's
so
a missed
cool.
opportunity. I bet you, like in another year, but like, hey, Cuphead's coming to Switch, because it will no longer be exclusive to Xbox or something.
Maybe. I hope so. Who knows?
Maybe they'll have DLC. Like, I hope these guys end up making DLC or something else like that, because with like games like Shantae and like these little indie games that have just great character animations and things like that. I want to see more of it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I can't get over how good the character design is on these guys, because like
You're talking about Cuphead now?
Yeah, Cuphead. Sorry, I switched back to that. The character design on these guys is so simple, yet it's so simple, but it feels just like they just came out from nothing. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, so Chad was designing all these characters to be the main character or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he went the whole route of like, oh, maybe it'll be an animal. He at one point he said he had this like a little king guy or something. But he said that his brother Jared had some kind of weird aversion to mugs and cups when he was little. So I don't know why he would decide to make a character off of that. But he said like, oh, once we had that character's head like be a cup, he's like the silhouette was just powerful, and he's like, and we knew right there, it's like, this is it. This is the character that we're using.
I mean, the character's so nonsensical. You know what I mean? Like, he's a cup with a body. Doesn't make any sense at all. He's got a straw coming out of his head. The very beginning, Mugman drinks from his own head.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
You know what's cool too is okay, so going back to that guy who was talking about the animation process, all that, they were basically saying that like some of these character designs like felt like we were Frankensteining old like cartoons together, you know, like you got like the rubber hose arms from somebody, and then you got like Mickey's shorts, you got somebody else's shoes and all this stuff.
Because it like I want to put it as a Fleischer Studio a character, but he's got the Mickey Mouse trunks. Yeah. But then they use their hands to do like guns and stuff like that, and that's definitely a Fleischer thing. And when Mugman drinks from his own head, it feels like when Felix the cat used to take off his own tail. Yeah. And use it as a crank to crank something else. It just, I don't know, the whole thing feels like just such a mishmash of all these different ideas. Right. You know, especially some of these characters almost look like old school Disney cartoons. Like those black and white, like Plain Crazy. Plain Crazy. Yeah, exactly. Like if somebody told me that Cuphead was a real cartoon in the 1930s, and that these guys just kind of revived him because it fell into public domain, I'd be like, "That, of course it is." Yeah. Because they even got like instead of doing just the little like dots for eyes, they went with the eye with the little pie cut out of it. The little cutout. Yeah. It's so good.
But that's the story of Cuphead so far. I'm so glad like this game caught on too, because I remember back when I saw like in 2015 or whenever it was, I honestly thought it would be something that I would like, because I like 1940s. I like old aesthetics. I like vinylly grainy sound and stuff, and I like jazz, all that stuff. I didn't think it would blow up like this, and I'm just really happy that it did for their sake, basically, because I just told you, like, they mortgaged their house, they quit their jobs, and it's cool that they actually paid off. Like, what a nice, wholesome ending to this tale. I wonder if at one point they'll think about doing DLC or something like that. I don't know.
I really hope they do, because even if they just add
more bosses, that would be so easy, right? To just add in.
Yeah, because one cool thing from another indie, I don't know if you call it indie studio, but it's called the guys who did Shank. That game I like to play. They also did another game called Mark of the Ninja, right? Which is great, right? But one DLC was one of the guys in there that's an older, like sensei type of character. You have to do his like beginning
or story. Okay,
but the great thing about it was he's a pacifist, so he doesn't kill like you do in Mark of the Ninja. So it's a harder version of what you play.
Oh, and so you can't kill anybody?
You can't kill anybody. He just knocks people out, and eventually they wake up, kind of thing. Like, it's great. And in my head, I'm like, do you know how their father figure in this game is the kettle? Yeah. I'm like, I wonder what his adventures were when he was a kid.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, and maybe he doesn't have maybe he's like, I don't shoot guns. Maybe I'm just like an old school Mario that has to jump on top or something. Yeah. Like, this world feels very expandable.
It does. It just, it also just feels really alive. I like the character designs alone. I just feel like I've seen so much shit in this game. Like content-wise, I'm so blown away by the fact that it's only $20, you know? Yeah. Like it feels huge. It does, and I don't know. It's a really inspiring game. Everything about it is just so nice to look at. Any final thoughts, Ernie?
There's so much to be said about the game, but the last thing I'll say is that it's such an endearing story coming from the creators.
Would you recommend it, or would you highly recommend it?
I would highly recommend it.
I would also highly recommend it.
Especially people my age.
Yeah, it's crazy because, like, it just feels like something we played as kids and saw as kids as far as cartoons. It's very much like our era. So I think anybody, if you're somewhere in your 20s, maybe early 30s, it's like you get this game. You play it. You're going to have a good time.
It just feels like a platformer that I've been wanting to play for a long time.
Yeah.
Because so much of what I play nowadays is too much hand-holding, too easy,
Right.
and just there's no drive to play it after a certain amount of time. It's just like, I bought it, I should play it. This game feels like I want to see more kind of thing.
When you beat an enemy or like a boss, you feel good.
Yeah.
It feels like you did something.
Yeah. But it just feels appropriate. It just feels appropriately difficult.
Like taking my finger off of the shoot button, I'm like, yes. Like, I gotta go ice down my hand because I've been holding down this fucking shoot button for so long.
Remember really quick, something that's a quip, but when we were playing 2-player, I left my finger on the X button while you were still playing and I was dead.
Yeah.
So like after both of us died, I would take my finger. I was like, why am I still holding the X button down?
Yeah,
it's just like I feel like there's such a like a
it's a really
intensity
game.
To it. Yeah. But yeah, highly recommend it. Go buy it. It's the best $20 you'll spend on a game.
I think so. Man, with Sonic Mania and then this game coming out, it's like
I had a lot of stuff to play this weekend.
It's good, man. It's a lot of good stuff. Yeah, and then fucking Odyssey comes out at the end of the month. Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so good.
So we got Cuphead, we had SNES this weekend, and now Odyssey comes out at the end of this week. So I'm almost done with my 3DS. Back onto the Switch. Lots of stuff to play.
That's gonna be fucking great. All right, guys. That's it for this week. See you next week.
See you guys.